Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on July 6, 2022 at approximately 1:35 p.m. BST. It really boils down to a situation where you've got to look at where you're standing. Now, because this is an even day, I'm going to do my best to focus on how to control where your finances are going, how to make the most of what you're working with. Now, understand, first and foremost, I am not trained in finances. Okay, the tools I offer are simply the ones I personally use myself and have taken me from living one paycheck from living on the street to having 3 months sitting in the bank. Okay, and now this is not a great leeway, but it's a heck of a sight better than it was. Now, the other thing about this is, I first and foremost, I suspect, I came back to this world for one reason, for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. With this in mind, if you like the video, absolutely give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel because there's a lot of information we're going to try and cover. And yes, before you get started on it, we tend to get a little haphazard on occasion. Kind of like hunting with a shotgun. Not necessarily a great idea, but it is effective. Okay. Now, when I talk about connecting with other people, the reality is that no man, no woman, no entity is an island unto themselves. Okay. Quite frankly, even the planet itself is not alone. Okay. What we have to look at is right now society is going down a very complicated path. And way too many people are still concentrating on what don't you have. Okay. Now I personally get really edgy when I start to travel. Okay. And for the first time, like I used to travel, I'd be on the road 2 to 3 weekends a month. Okay. Then that particular venture petered out, and I stopped traveling for the longest time. And then, of course, when COVID hit, I quit altogether. Well, for the first time in years, I'm actually set to be on a plane at the end of this month. Now, to give you an idea of how high my stress goes, okay, I got the trip booked. Right, I went through a company, got the trip booked, got the paperwork all sent to me. And no sooner did I get off the phone with getting the tickets to me, than I was on the horn to the hotel I'll be staying at, just to make certain that I had a reservation there. Okay, got done that. And then I'm sitting there going, well, I've got the paperwork, but I wasn't absolutely certain that that was all I required to get onto the plane. My stress went right through the roof. The amazing part for me was it did not actually change. It didn't actually alter my blood pressure much. It stayed well within functional. Okay, which is neat when you think that the doctors told me flat out I would be on blood pressure medication for the rest of my life. Now, to be clear, doctors do have a use. Okay, I just don't like them. And therefore, I don't on the whole go. But for you, they may be a necessity. Okay, but it was because of talking to other people that I was able to get the information I needed to set my mind at ease. So as it stands right now, I know at first thing in the morning on the 28th, on July 28th, I have to be at the airport. Okay, in order for me to go in to get to the reunion. Now, I can now sit back because I've done all the stress, all the worry about it. Okay, because I had people I could talk to, I managed to bring my stress level down to a functional point. Now, one of the key factors where it comes to your finances, okay, is figure out you have to know what your baseline is. What do you require to run your house? Okay, which really boils down to this. Your rent or mortgage, they are an absolute critical must. If you do not keep them up to date, you end up on the street. Now, I don't know about you, but from my standpoint, I got no real interest in living on the street. I spent my entire life, up until this year, one paycheck away from moving out onto the street, which is a really bad stress point if you think that I had, that I've got a son living with me. Okay, last thing you want to do is put your son on the street at the same time. Okay, so that's good. Okay, that's the one issue. But I managed to get that turned around. Now I'm sitting here by figuring it out. You get your rent, your rent or your mortgage, because ultimately they're the same thing. Ultimately, you're paying somebody else so you can stay living there. And it's the same thing that goes, unless you're not paying land taxes, which frankly ought to be a neat trick. You're renting or leasing from the government. You're still essentially paying rent. Yes, you've got the right to do what you will to the property, but within reason. But you still have to make that payment or they take it away from you. So the rent's got to be paid, and you've got to make sure the power is paid. Now, it's funny, I've talked to a lot of people that go, because of the finances, I'm behind in all my utilities, and they're about to cut off my power and my cable. And then the person will sit there and look you dead in the eye and go, I've got to get my cable paid. It's more important than everything. Bad news. You don't pay your power, it won't matter if your cable's paid. Okay. You don't pay your power, it won't matter if anything else is covered. Okay. Even most phones today won't matter if you don't have the power paid. Okay, so this is something to keep in mind. When we're looking at what you've got to have covered to cover living expenses. And I might be missing something here, okay? You have to have your rent, your rent or your mortgage. You got to have your utilities, power, gas, water. Okay, you might want your phone and your entertainment, but you really should have both of those as well. And I recommend only one credit card gets classified as a utility. Okay, it's not a big problem having more than one credit card if you use them properly. Okay, but figure that out as well as your insurance. You've got your insurance. You've got to have money for food, and it would be advisable to have money for savings. Now I figured it out. I said yesterday, or the day before, I had to work out my finances to figure out if I brought it up too far. And the reality is, the $2,500 that I required before is still the same amount. Okay, I'm just running real quick numbers here. Just so I can make certain of what I'm dealing with. 500 utilities, and then I've got... So yeah, 5, 10, 15... Yeah, okay, so I can still pull it off as long as what I'm watching, as long as what I'm working with, or what I end up spending. As long as I pay attention to it, I can still do it comfortably on $2,500. Okay, that will cover the whole 9 yards as long as I pay attention. And quite frankly, my downfall is eating out. Okay, but as long as I pay attention to that, I'll be fine. So you figure out what you require, okay, in order to cover all of that. Once you've got that covered, okay, and remember, when you're looking at what comes in, one of the small bills I don't talk about much, but is absolutely critical. Okay, your first two bills you cover are your rent or your mortgage and your power. The third one is what is called mad money. You take 1% of the net that comes in. In other words, $1 for every complete $100. That becomes your mad money. That's the money used for going out for coffee, for going out for, if you want to buy a Slurpee or if you want to buy a chocolate bar. That's where the mad money comes in. Do with it what you will. Okay, once you've got that covered, now you can start looking at the rest of it. Okay, but what I end up doing is I take that first $2,500. Now, when I look at covering the rest of the bills, and I will do one, I'm going to set it up, like plan it out so I can do it properly. But ultimately, you've got to cover that before you start helping everybody around you. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a firm believer that helping people is a critical part of society, and it's something that we have, on the whole, forgotten. Correction. It may have been forgotten, it may just be being ignored. Way too many people I see lately are flat out ignoring it. Okay. Now, the reality is, if we don't start working together, we're going to go down the exact same road. Well, we're already heading that direction. Down the exact same road that Rome went down, that Sodom and Gomorrah went down, that so many civilizations have gone down in the past. Okay, but the thing that people are forgetting is communication amongst each other, face-to-face communication. That social interaction is critical. Okay, and the reason I say critical is because watch what happens if you isolate people too much. For me, I became reclusive. I stay away from people, and now it becomes real challenging to get out of the house. Okay, like I said, my stress level in trying to set this holiday up. Okay, I had a reason for really wanting to make this one run, and all I was waiting for, to be honest, was for travel restrictions to be lifted. They got lifted. I set it in motion right away. Now it's costing me a little more than I would have liked, but so be it. This is why planning things ahead of time makes rational sense. Absolutely. Now, I asked somebody a long time ago, how do you deal with what's going on if your heart and your head are in conflict? And the gentleman turned around and he looks at me and he goes, well, that's easy. You follow your heart, but you use your head to get there. Okay. Now, I desired to make this trip, and because I knew I was waiting till the last minute, I put a bunch of money aside in order to be able to afford it, essentially regardless of what happened. Well, as it turns out, it cost me a lot more than I was planning on, but I had the money there. So now I just have to really watch what I'm spending over the next few months to rebuild things back to where I desire. By the end of this year, I will be back up where I desire to be. Okay, but that's because of solid planning. Now, I am a strong believer that a budget only works if you have a definitive amount of money coming in. For instance, there's one contract in particular that I've got that every month it is the exact same amount of money coming in, right down to the penny. So I can take that amount of money and I can go, okay, here's where it's going. Here's where I'm spending that specific chunk of money. Everything else is based on fluctuating numbers. Okay, so you can absolutely track it. Okay, and this is one of those books that I'm working on to explain in very simplistic terms how to work with money. The funny part about it is I'm not trained as a financial advisor. I am simply trained to think. Okay, and the tools I offer and the ones I'm putting in this book simply explain how to track your money in simplest terms. Now, I will tell you this. If you already know how to track your money, there's no problem. Carry on with it. Okay, if you don't, then the best place to go is to talk to a financial advisor. I personally find that if you can get in to talk to a loans officer, no, scratch that. If you can get in to talk to your financial advisor in the bank, in your bank, this is likely your best move. They're paid to take care of your money in the first place. Hopefully, you will have one that will sit down with you and go, here's a simple set of books to lay out. Now, the reality is that the one book that I'm in the process of writing, but because of the fact I'm writing, well, frankly, 31 at once, because of that, it becomes a little bit of an issue. Okay. But I will quite happily sit down with any one of you if you're having trouble figuring out how to actually track where your money goes. I'm more than willing to sit down with you and go, okay, this is how to do it. Because the reality of it is, if you can track your money, now you're going to have to do the work. And this is the thing so many people forget. Okay, if you're going to be successful at anything, you're the only one in existence that is going to come in, that can come in and correct the problem for you. Absolutely ask for input, ask for guidance. Okay, now I will tell you, like I said, I am not trained as a financial advisor. I've made massive mistakes, and that is seriously how I managed to figure things out. I went bankrupt twice at the guidance of a so-called professional. And what I came to understand way after the fact was in both cases, the only person that made any money that it really benefited was the financial and the bankruptcy trustee. Okay, I will tell you, in most cases, in my opinion, most cases, but it's a case-by-case situation, you can actually avoid bankruptcy. Okay. And like I said, the reality is you got into the mess. Okay. It is imperative you look at that and go, okay, how do I deal with it? But bankruptcy, it doesn't do you any good. Sure, it takes the immediate stress off, but wipes out your credit rating, makes you go back on a contract you made. Okay. And the people that loaned you money in the first place, they also get shortchanged. The only one that seems to make any money is the one that is setting up the deal, the bankruptcy trustee. Now, don't get me wrong, that's what they are paid for. Okay. However, I'm still a firm believer that bankruptcy is usually a bad move. It may take you longer to get out from under it. But with persistence, just like weight loss, with persistent effort, you can make it happen. Okay. See, you got every time I talk to people about, financial advisors about what do you do when your finances are in this state and here's your bills. And what I keep getting told by just about all of them is cut back your spending. Well, it comes to a point where that's not possible. Okay. In reality, what I discovered is there are two ways of solving the problem. One, cut back your spending where possible. In my case, quitting going out to restaurants 4 or 5 days a week is a pretty big impact. That'll save me $300 to $400 a month. Okay. In your case, that may not be the problem. Okay, and yeah, we can certainly go the route of going, well, quit smoking or quit drinking. It's a cute thought, but the addiction that is there is a massive problem. And it's not just that simple. And this is what most people don't get. Now, do I know a method that many people have tried, that many people have implemented, and stopped drinking and or smoking? The answer is definitively yes. Okay. Now, honestly, I never tried either one, but then I was able to quit cold turkey just because with the drinking and the drugs for that matter. I just quit. Okay, but I've had a lot of people that were not in that state of mind, where the methods that I know of work. Okay, and I've had literally thousands of people that have done it and come back to me and said, I'm done with it. I'm not smoking anymore, or I'm not drinking anymore. Of course, every now and again, you get one that says, I'm not smoking anymore. Of course, I'm not smoking any less, but it's an individual thing. I do not guarantee it will work. I will guarantee it has worked for literally hundreds, if not thousands of other people. But you figure out your two options are either cut back on what you're spending, if possible, okay, where you're spending stupid money. I call it stupid. Like, for instance, okay, I know going out to a restaurant costs me a fortune. So, therefore, if I have to cut back, that's the first thing that goes. Because I already know the problem that comes with it. There it is. I already know the problem that comes hand in hand with spending so much money in the restaurant. Okay, so you cut back where you can. The other option is to increase your cash flow. That way, by increasing your cash flow, still watching what you're doing with your finances, okay, you will get things back on track. It will take time, but then you got to remember it did not take you just a moment to get into this mess. Okay, and this is why I said you take a look at your and wherever you work on your finances. Okay, at your office, as it were, the brain of both your house and your home. Okay, once you've taken a look at that and got it organized, that's when you take a look at things and go, okay, what am I doing? What can I do to make it happen? Well, in my case, what I found was this. You get the energy in your house worked out right, and you will find that things turn around quite nicely. Okay, you'll find that you all of a sudden, it's not that you have more money, but because you're more aware of it, you've got less, less bleed out on your finances. Now, I mean, if you think about it, you have seen how much coffee I drink. Can you picture my going out for coffee with that amount of coffee going through my hands? I'd be flat broke. Especially if you go to some of these specialty coffee shops, and you're spending that kind of money. Okay. Now, granted, I drink a lot more coffee than most, but I also had a nutritionist tell me that because of the weakness of my coffee, there's no functional problem with it. Okay, basically, I changed the flavor so that I'm not tasting the chlorine. Okay, but you make sure your office, wherever you're working on your finances, get that cleared out first. It will help your brain clear itself so that you can think a little bit more readily. And I will tell you, that is the key right there to getting started on changing the way the energy in your life is working. Now, this funny little book that I wrote here. Nope, not that one. It's Partner. This one here. Believe in yourself and follow your dreams. That's the backbone of how I changed the way my life was run. Okay. See, I call myself a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are literally the tools I personally use and will continue to use to change my life for what I consider the better, not for what anybody else does. Like, I mean, you think about it. I used to have my hair down past my elbows, right? And I came to the point at one point where I decided I was looking at cutting it back. So what did I do? I called up my other half, and I asked her. I says, do you like long hair? Right. Obviously referring to myself, right? And she goes, well, it's not a deal breaker, but she says, since you asked, I prefer it shorter, but don't change it just for me, which is fantastic. But like I told her, I said, look, the reality of it is this: I wasn't phoning to see whether or not I could get it cut. I phoned to find out whether you desired me to leave it longer. Okay, and since she didn't, I've ended up cutting it way back, obviously, because, well, this isn't down to my elbows, so I got really, really short arms. Okay. It is a good thing. Like, it's absolutely critical when you're dealing with your partner, when you're dealing with a relationship, whether it's a partnership, a marriage, whether you're talking about dealing with your own kids or with people that you're around all the time. It's absolutely critical that you get communication lines running properly. But you've got to set boundaries that you personally are happy with. Okay. Now, for me, that really boiled down to an issue of, okay, I know what I'm aiming at. I'm tired of being broke. So what can I do to put my life in order so I am no longer feeling like I'm behind the eight ball? Now, last month was an extremely expensive month for me. Of course, in all fairness, bought a brand new car, and now I booked a holiday that I haven't been on I actually haven't been on a holiday in 10 years. Come to think of it, I haven't been on a trip in 10 years. Okay. So last month was really expensive. Now I have to start dealing with it. Okay. Well, the trip, in all fairness, I only just paid for. But now I have to start really looking at it and going, okay, how do I get back on the right track? And I can look at it. You can look at it. It didn't take you a day and a half to get into the situation you're in. So it's going to take time to get out of it. Okay, I'm finally in a position where I'm quite content with where I'm standing. Okay, I know the path I'm on. The thing I was not expecting to pull off this lifetime was finding peace of mind. Okay, peace of mind to me was, I thought it was supposed to be, how do you fit in with this world? That ain't the way it works. Peace of mind is, how do you wake up in the morning and feel you're in control of your life? Okay, not are you making everybody else happy, but are you content with you? Once you've got that down pat, then you'll find that your mind settles down when you get to that point where you go, okay, I know I'm not breaking the laws because that's a bad idea right off the bat. I know I'm treating people the way I desire to be treated. Okay, and I know I've got definitive goals. Now, for me, it's simple. Okay, for you, it's simple. Figure out what you require to run your household. That's your first. That's the first financial goal. Okay, doesn't matter where you're standing in life. Doesn't matter how much money you've got. Figure out how much you require to run your house. Okay, take a look in the mirror. Ask yourself: are you content with the way you look? Okay, never mind. Does anybody else like it? But are you content with what you're looking at? If the answer is yes, then absolutely stay the way you are. Again, remember, the one reason for following the laws, in my eyes, is simple. I can't deal with the hassle of not doing so. This does not mean you have to agree with every law. Okay, am I a firm believer that everybody should help each other where possible? You bet. But you got to watch for the people that you're trying to help that are not making any effort to correct their situation. Okay, sometimes that's because they really don't know how. Okay, and then you have to watch what you're doing. Like, for instance, if somebody does not know how to handle their finances, okay, you cannot straighten it out for them. You can certainly point them in the right direction. Like when I actually do help somebody that is short on food, I won't give them money to go and buy food. Okay, what I'll end up doing, especially if somebody is out panhandling on the street. Okay, I will simply look at it and get them a little bit of food, assuming I've got the money to do it. Okay, but you get the if they're out panhandling, the thing they really require, in most cases, is food. Even drug addicts and alcoholics, their primary concern they really do require remembering that the food is going to be a critical issue. If they don't get the food, they are going to die. It's that simple. Kind of like you. You don't get food in your system, you're going to die. And that is the one backbone that we all have, no matter what walk of life you come from. If you do not, we are all going to die. And no, you're not taking your material world with you. Now, with this in mind, I've got to get a few other things done. So I'm going to leave you be, and I will see you again soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.